After reading many of the comments on this page, I thought it might help to have a CPA explain who is a business versus who is an employee under New Jersey law. So I made this podcast to answer the questions I've seen people pose. These are my opinions alone, and I hope they help. Thanks, Chris Whalen, CPA. Some important initial notes on the next few slides. The parties to any business contract should decide what their business relationship is without government interference. Elected officials rarely have enough experience to vote on such complicated matters without detailed analysis. With regard to New Jersey bills S4204 and A5936, years of analysis needs to be done to protect the taxpayers from dramatic financial, business, and income tax ramifications. These bills must be shelved until that analysis is completed. I urge every elected official listening to this to do all you can to try to stop any further votes on these bills. Your constituency should be your main priority, and they are watching to see if they are yours. Where work is performed has nothing to do with characterizing a relationship as business to business or business to employee. This is a ridiculous idea, and it's still part of these bills. Here's an example. So let's say you're a prefab home manufacturer. We'll call you manufacturer A, and you get a sudden large one-time order. Then you want to engage prefab home manufacturer B to come work at your facility to produce 50 units with 50 of their staff because of your sudden workload. Although it is performing the same work on the premises of Company A, Company B is an independent business. Under existing law, Company A has to pay all of Company B's employees, including the owner of Company B, on a W-2. This is obviously ridiculous and unworkable, as Company B has its own payroll and is not an employee of anyone. Even with the new bills that are proposed, they're going to keep this premises rule. So this would still apply, which you could see how this wouldn't make any sense practically. Independent businesses call the businesses that pay them clients, not employer or boss. Forming an LLC or corporation has nothing to do with determining if you are running a business. And having multiple clients at the same time is not required to be considered a business. Example, I'm going to go over a freelance author or writer over the next few slides because there's a lot of writers out there that are concerned about this. So I believe all writers should call themselves authors, whether writing 2,000-page novels or recipes or news stories. You're writing an independent piece from your creative mind. That's an author to me. Any author at any level can be an independent business. Novel authors are independent business people, just as I think independent article writers are authors and independent. Okay, authors or writers can work weeks or months on a project for one client and then move on to another. Yes, that work can be done on the premises of their client without negating the independent business status. This is a really good example. Let's say you're a freelance writer and week 1 CNN hires you to write an article under a contract, and you go to do work at the CNN office in New Jersey. In week number 2, you now have a contract for a piece to do for ESPN. You're going to write an article for them, and you go to work at the ESPN office in New Jersey. Week number 3, Fox now hires you to write an article under another separate contract, and you go to the Fox office in New Jersey to do the work. At no time was this author an employee of CNN, ESPN, or Fox. Yet they must be paid as W-2 because they worked on site. As you see, this makes absolutely no sense in this circumstance, which is a very common circumstance. Working on the premises of CNN, ESPN, or Fox has nothing to do with them being an independent contractor or an employee. This ignores the reality of normal business-to-business practices and cannot be allowed to continue as law. This next chart details some general guidelines for differentiating between who is a business and who is an employee. Note, all of these do not and will not apply to everyone, but it is a good place to start evaluating your situation. Individual circumstances vary. Okay, let's look at the business column. Now, businesses actively look for new clients openly, and this does not cause a problem with the businesses that engage them as an independent contractor. That makes sense. For example, I do tax returns. Can you imagine if I couldn't seek out new tax returns because my one tax return client would be annoyed? Of course not. That wouldn't make sense. I'm an independent business. Businesses often have contracts or engagement letters each time they're hired. I suggest that you do this very strongly for each engagement you have. With a business, work is not open-ended, but usually based on a specific project or job that has a definitive endpoint. No assumption that the independent contractors will work after each engagement is over. Businesses send invoices for services rendered. Businesses have a business presence. They have websites, business cards, marketing plans, business insurance. They maintain accounting records. Okay, so now let's go over to the employee column and compare and contrast the similar categories here. Employees never openly look for new work, as this will cause a problem with the business that hired them as an employee. Look at the difference there. An employee, unlike a business owner, would never be openly looking for new financial opportunities while they're working for somebody. This is a very, very important distinction that I think needs to be made part of the law. This distinction between the business and the employee here in terms of actively looking for new clients or work or not. Our employee. An employee does not usually have a contract or engagement letter. They might have employment contracts, but these are not the same thing. With an employee, the work is open-ended. Employees are hired for an indefinite period of time until the employee is fired or quits. 100% assumed that the employees are working indefinitely, completely the opposite of being an independent business under contract. Employees never invoice their employers. An employee does not have a business presence. So take a few minutes. You could even pause the video here, and you could see the differences are very clear, and you could see where you stack up in either the business column or the employee column. Note that nowhere in that chart does it mention where the work is performed, as it does not make a difference. Nor does it say that forming an LLC or S-Corp makes any difference, as it does not. Independent contractors may choose to not work for a client after the current engagement is completed. This is assumed and understood between both parties. This is the complete opposite for employees. Employees work continuously with no predetermined end date until they are fired or they quit. I hope you found all of this worthwhile. Please contact me with any questions. You can see my phone number and my email on the screen right now. Again, this is Chris Whalen, CPA. And again, I hope you found this worthwhile and informative.